spend a couple minutes. I've been asked a couple of times to put together some short videos and talk about some specific obedience tasks, but recently I've had several requests to talk about recall. Recall's in my opinion, kind of a complicated thing. It's not really a single task. It's not like a sit. It's not like a down where you can ask and reward for these specific things. The recall needs to come after a number of other foundational skills have been taught. So I've been training dogs for about 30 years and I've learned a lot over the years. I've trained a lot of horses. I've even trained some chickens. They're not super smart. Chickens have a brain about the size of half a pea, so they learn certain things, but some of the complicated stuff is a little beyond their interpretive abilities. But dogs are really brilliant creatures. Their brains are not like ours. They're wired quite differently, but they're incredibly savvy and capable of picking up even complicated strings of tasks. But something like the recall, we take for granted. So just to start very briefly, I'm going to do this video in about 5 parts and put it out over the course of about 5 days. So we talk a little bit so I don't bore you guys out of your minds just talking nonstop for about half an hour. But ultimately, to give you an idea of how I have learned and have talked to, gosh, dozens of other trainers over the years, and really some trial and error, some old school ways that I have come to find just don't work as well. I've learned a lot from some wonderful, purely positive trainers. I wouldn't consider myself a positive trainer exclusively. I'm definitely a balanced trainer because I believe that there are certain things that require consequences to fully accomplish with the kinds of dogs that I work with. I do train some pet dogs. Fairly rarely, honestly. I have a few pet clients, mostly referrals, but most of the dogs I'm training are working dogs. I work with State of Jefferson working dogs. I have almost exclusively Belgian Malinois and Dutch Shepherds and the occasional working line German Shepherd dog, but even those are a little fewer these days in the working world. So some of the tasks that I'm training are pretty complicated as well, as you can imagine. In the working world there's some pretty advanced stuff. But whether you have a Labrador who lives at home with you and your kids and is a household pet, doesn't have any specific goals other than to be happy and enjoy its life and hang out with y'all, or you have a sporting dog that hunts with you, a retriever or a bird dog, a pointer, or if you have a competitive sport dog and you participate in some of the AKC sports or some of the protection sports, whatever your goals are, having a rock-solid recall is really valuable. If you have a working dog out in the world, if you have a search dog, if you're a police canine handler, you need to have a rock-solid recall for safety because your dog is out in public. But even if you have a pet dog, you don't want your dog sprinting out into the street or going after a squirrel in a public place or going inappropriately after other dogs to play, what have you. Recall's really important, but we don't start with the concept of recall. We have to think about all of the complicated steps involved with building the 2 parts that are involved with training that process. 1 is an incentive, and 2 are the consequences for not doing it. We will get to that much later, but there needs to be an incentive. And that is also broken down into 2 parts. In order to establish an incentive with your dog, you need to have something of value. You may have just gotten an 8-week-old puppy. You may have adopted a dog from the shelter. You may be just starting with a new dog who has obedience foundation, but you're a new handler for this dog. So whatever your new relationship with the dog is, or maybe you have a dog you've had for years and you've just never been able to build a solid recall. Well, you got to start at the beginning. So first of all, you have to establish that you have something of value. Now, a lot of dogs are food oriented. Gosh, we should all be so lucky. That is great. Use that. Food is a wonderful motivator. Now, about 50% of the dogs that I work with, yes, they are food motivated, but that is not their top goal. These guys work for, there's Angus over there. They will happily pass up food, even incredibly high value food like bacon, for a ball, a tug, or in some, even just interaction with you. They are much more interested in the engagement element than they are in handing them a piece of yummy kibble, sausage, cheese even. I mean, heck, I love bacon, but I could have bacon in my hand, and a good number of these dogs will turn that down just because I have a tug under my arm, and won't take their eyes off that. So that's what we use. We don't use what we think the dog should want. We use what the dog really wants. So think about, what is your dog's primary motivator? Is it purely food? Is it purely toys? Is it a combination of the two? And then we need to think about, why does the dog want to come back? What do I mean to the dog? Have I put in the time to establish myself in a relationship with my dog? Am I a valuable member of my dog's group? So we start with a simple, straightforward motivator, something the dog truly wants and needs that you can hold on to and motivate with either food or tug or toy. And then we also think about the second part of that is building a powerful relationship with your dog. You need to be in charge of all of the things that matter to your dog in order to be a valuable, respected member of the dog's group. You need to be in control of when the dog goes in or out. You need to be in control of when the dog eats, when the dog drinks water. You need to be the provider of all things good and valuable, and you also need to be the decision maker. Your dog has to be, at the beginning, as you build a relationship and move on. If you were taking home a new dog from the shelter, this is really important, to establish a series of rules, protocols, and boundaries. Your dog needs to know his place. I know that sounds maybe even cruel, but the dog group, no dog comes into a new group situation in a free-for-all. They come in eating last, going through positions last, not sleeping in alpha mom's bed, but having to wait their turn and being punished. And so we're not worrying about feral dog groups or wolf packs here. What we're just worrying about is making the dog feel safe and secure, and building trust and a relationship with the handler by establishing the fact that everything good comes from you, and the dog will feel more confident knowing that its place is solid and well established, and that there's no question or confusion about who's in charge. The dog doesn't have to question, am I supposed to be in charge? Do I need to step up here and run this show? No, the dog knows exactly where he stands. And at the moment, that's at the bottom and needs to start at the bottom. You need to be in charge. If you have problems asserting yourself and being in charge, learn a little bit about body language. Learn how to pull your shoulders back, lift your chin up, and set your chest out a little bit so that you can hold yourself in a way that the dog recognizes you as physically above it. Start that way. Don't stare your dog down, or worry about alpha rules, that stuff is ridiculous in a new dog. Just carry yourself, use your voice conservatively. Don't talk to your dog nonstop. It just makes your voice less valuable. But start with building a solid engagement foundation where you have something of value and you are building respect with your dog. And then tomorrow we'll talk about actually marking behavior and building focus. All right, thanks guys.